Recently, over on my Instagram, I asked you guys about your savings rate. Popular wisdom says that we should save at least 20% of the money we make, but y'all told me that is not happening. So in today's video, we're gonna dig into why you're not saving money. I'm Adelia Borishade, also known as Picky Girl Travels the World. In addition to being a traveler, I'm also a financial educator and coach. And on this YouTube channel, I share my experiences retiring early at age 45, as well as those of my guests, many of whom have also reached financial independence. I also share what it's like to live in other places and how you can afford to do so. If any of that resonates with you, I hope that you will subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way you'll know the next time I upload a new video. So let's get into this. I don't have to tell y'all that the current state of the economy is not great. And you may or may not have heard this, but it is forecast to be even less great going into the next year. The number one thing you can do to put yourself in a position to weather not so great financial situations is to save and invest. And so that's why we're talking about why is it that you're not being able to save. We've all heard the statistic, at least for those of us from the US, that like 40% of Americans could not handle an unexpected $1,000 expense. We're not going to look at specific amounts when we talk about saving and investing. It's really, I think, more important to look at it in terms of savings rate. What percentage of the money you make are you saving and investing? In particular, for those of you who are working toward financial independence, your savings rate is really, really important, because the amount of money I needed to be able to quit my job versus the amount of money you need is going to be completely different, because we live different lifestyles. Popular wisdom says we should have a savings rate of at least 20%. And again, that includes what you're investing, including the investment retirements, as well as saving for short-term goals. For those of you who are considering financial independence, at minimum, you need to be saving at least 50%. Depending on your timeline, that number might need to be a little higher. So let's get into it. Why can't you save any money? I would bet that a great number of you are watching this video and the first thought that pops into your head is, I can't save money in this economy, not with inflation doing what it's doing. I challenge you to ask yourself a question. What was your savings rate before inflation spiked, before we saw all of these price increases? Because if that is indeed the reason why you're not saving money, you should have seen a decrease in your savings rate as we've seen inflation and prices go up. I would bet for a lot of us, that's not the case. I would even go so far as to say for a lot of us, we don't even have any idea what our savings rate is. So let's talk about, how do you figure out your savings rate? Basically, savings rate is the amount you save divided by your income multiplied by 100. Pretty simple math. Now, it can get a little tricky. Are we talking about gross income? Are we talking about net income? How do we figure in taxes? I have linked in the description a savings rate calculator from Choose FI that, if you're like me and mathematically challenged, you can use this calculator to help you figure out what exactly your savings rate is now. They also, in that same link, they also have a good article that explains like 3 different ways you could calculate it if you want to do the math, or you can be like me and just use their calculator. Now that you've got an idea of what your savings rate is, some of you already know it's 0. Or maybe you've done the math and you found out that yes, you are saving 20%. How do you compare to the rest of Americans? Check out this graph. And so what you notice is, although we technically should be saving 20% of what we make, the vast majority, the average American, is saving about 4%. If you look historically, I find it really interesting, those big spikes you see during 2020, during lockdown, people only had nowhere to go, so they saved quite a bit of money. If we just look at the last few years, we've fluctuated somewhere between like 4 and 5%. So if you're one of the folks who are like, my savings rate is 0 is not that far from 5%. If you would just start saving 5% more of what you make, you would already be beating the average American. So we've looked at where you are in comparison to everybody else. Not that that matters, but I find that it does help some people get a sense that they're not alone. Now, collectively, I'm talking about the vast majority of Americans. Why aren't we able to save money? Well, the most obvious thing is there is no gap. There is no gap between the amount of money that comes in and the amount of money that goes out. There has to be a gap there in order for you to save. So if you want to increase your savings rate, you've got to increase that gap between what you bring in and what you send out, what you spend. How can you increase that gap? There are 2 levers. Either you reduce spending or you increase income. Now, this is not the video where I'm going to get into the ins and outs of ways that you could make more money. I will link a video I did about, we're not going to call it passive income because passive income is really not a thing, but easy ways that you can make more money. Because I want you to make more money, but I don't want you to work any harder. The second reason why collectively we're not saving money is lifestyle creep. Think about your personal situation as you have gotten better positions, as you have started to earn more money. You've probably also spent more money. The level of your lifestyle has increased as your income has increased. We love an income increase, but what we want to do is hold the cost of our lifestyle stable. That way, as we make more money, we increase that gap. Another reason that we don't save, that we're not saving much, is that savings isn't a priority. Now, hear me out. I don't mean that it's not important to you, it's not something you want to do, but think about how you approach your finances. Do you pay yourself first? I know you've heard this terminology. This is where it needs to be applied. When you get paid, is the first money you deduct from that to pay yourself, to send money to savings, to send money to your investments? Or instead, do you try and do that after you've paid your bills and try to make do with what is left? That's what I mean by saving isn't a priority. If we make savings and investment a priority, and that becomes the number one expense on our list, we'll start to see our savings rate go up. It'll be much easier to increase our savings rate when we make it a priority. I talk about this in the video I did called You Don't Need a Budget. I will link that video below as well if you want to know more about that. We also don't save much money because we're not good at remembering. We got too much stuff going on. If you are leaving it up to yourself to remember, oh, I need to transfer this much money into my high yield savings account. I hope not a regular savings account. I need to I need to transfer this money into my high yield savings account, and you're doing it manually. What are the odds you are forgetting to do that, or it's getting bumped down your to-do list? Automation solves this problem for us. You can set up auto transfers. In some cases, you can even set up automatic investments so that you aren't the weak link in this chain. Okay, you're not depending on you're not depending on yourself to remember this, because you are doing 50 million other things. Take this off your plate. Outsource this. And then lastly, one of the reasons that we don't save is because of how we spend our money. We are often spending without intention, and then you look around and the money you were anticipating saving has instead been spent on something you didn't intend to. It wasn't part of the plan, but you saw it. You were roaming down the aisles of Target and you hit the end caps and you were like, hey, let me spend my money on this. Whatever the case is, I'm not here to tell you to spend less. That's your business. Spend less, make more. You decide how to do that. But what I am saying is that when you start to spend the money you make, be really intentional about it and think about, does this purchase align with my larger financial goals? And if it doesn't, you need to make sure that you are spending in ways that do. Be intentional with your spending. So, as I said before, 2 videos you need to watch next: ways to make easy money, as well as you don't need a budget. I have linked those below. So what I would love to hear from you guys is, what is your goal savings rate? Back when I was on the road to FIRE, back when I lived in China, I was saving probably 70-80% of my income. I'm not going to do that now, but I think I am going to try and raise my current savings rate another 5%. I'm going to try to do that. I want to hear from you. What is your savings rate goal? Let me know in the comments.